It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Tense, electric, and brimming with anticipation. Two figures stood on opposite ends of boxing's modern timeline, each a symbol of power in his own era. One, a relentless force forged in the chaos of the 80s, a man whose fists rewrote the definition of fear. The other, a sculpted titan of today's heavyweight scene, calm, focused, and as lethal as they come. Mike Tyson and Anthony Joshua. Names that don't just echo through the sport's history, but crash into it like thunder. What happens when raw aggression meets disciplined destruction? When legacy collides with the present? Mike Tyson wasn't just a boxer. He was a storm wrapped in muscle and rage. In his prime, he didn't enter the ring. He exploded into it. Short, stocky, and faster than anyone expected. Tyson turned giants into rubble. His knockouts weren't just wins. They were statements, violent reminders that fear had a face, and it wore black trunks. But Tyson was more than power. Behind those glowering eyes was a fighter with surgical timing, a predator who studied his prey in milliseconds. And as wild as his outside-the-ring persona could be, inside those ropes, he was all precision and pressure. He didn't wait for chances. He made them. Fast forward to the age of glossy pay-per-views and international arenas, and another name carved itself into the conversation. Anthony Joshua. Built like a statue, raised with Olympic discipline, and driven by something Tyson once knew too well: hunger. Joshua's rise was calculated, clean, and brutal in its own right. He moved like a welterweight and hit like a truck. His resume reads like a who's who of heavyweight contenders. But more importantly, Joshua represented the modern breed. Trained with data, surrounded by science, honed by recovery protocols and split-second analysis. Still, in his fists burned the same fire Tyson carried decades before. What makes this matchup more than just fantasy is what lies beneath their muscles and metals. Tyson, with all his demons, brought an unpredictability that couldn't be coached or copied. You never knew which version would show up, until it was too late. Joshua, methodical and measured, carries the calm before a calculated blitz. But can calculation survive chaos? Can science tame savagery? When that first bell rings, it won't just be power meeting power. It'll be a philosophy clash, an era against an era, instinct versus instruction. But here's where things twist. Imagine the lights dimming in a packed arena. Cameras flash. The announcer's voice booms. Tyson, older but still carved with menace, glares across the ring at a younger, taller Joshua who bounces on his toes, ice running through his veins. This isn't a highlight reel mashup or a video game dream match. This is flesh, bone, and history hanging in the balance. And neither man is here for nostalgia. One fights to prove that raw violence never ages. The other, to show that evolution leaves no room for ghosts. No script, no safety nets. Just one moment to settle an eternal question. There's something primal about this kind of story, something that taps into more than boxing. It's about legacy, pride, and the fear of fading into footnotes. Tyson's legacy is already carved into granite, but a win here would breathe life into the myth, transforming it into something alive and terrifying once again. Joshua, on the other hand, stands at a crossroads. With every win, he inches closer to defining his own era. But to get there, he must walk through a shadow larger than most champions ever face. It's not just about the punch. It's about what's behind it. The rage, the will, the refusal to fall. Then there's the crowd, the millions watching, each bringing their own memories, loyalties, and expectations. Some root for the savage resurgence, others for the clinical takedown. But all of them wait for the same thing. That moment where everything pauses. The split second where a punch hangs in the air, and time holds its breath. It's in that silence where this story truly lives. Because when Tyson's left hook rips through the air, or Joshua's right straight finds its mark, it's more than just boxing. It's history being rewritten in real time. And still, beneath the surface of gloves and game plans, a different kind of pressure builds. Tyson has spoken before about his fear, about how it turns to power once he steps through those ropes. But what happens if that fear returns? Older, heavier, harder to convert? And what about Joshua? Cool on the outside, but what if deep down he sees more than an opponent across from him? What if he sees a legend, a ghost of greatness he's not ready to face? Sometimes, the real fight isn't with the man in front of you. It's with the doubts crawling behind your eyes. Now picture this. Seconds before the bell. Tyson, pacing like a caged beast, His breathing steady, but his eyes locked with a hunger that time couldn't kill. Joshua calm, nodding to his corner, his fists wrapped in confidence, but his heart pulsing faster than he'll admit. The crowd is deafening, but inside the ring, it's quiet. Just two men, one ring, and an answer waiting to be written. With blood, sweat, and split-second decisions. It's not just a clash of heavyweights. It's a war between two ideologies. A collision that could shatter the walls of the sport. And just as the ref steps forward, glove touch pending, a subtle tension slices through the air, like the universe itself knows what's about to unfold. But before the opening punch is thrown, before the rhythm begins and destinies shift, one question lingers like smoke. Which force will break first, the legend's fury or the champion's control? As the bell cracked through the noise, something shifted, not just in the ring, but in every eye watching. Tyson didn't charge. He didn't rush. He stood, still as stone, measuring Joshua with a glare that didn't blink. The world had expected a storm from the opening second, a flash of that old, ferocious Tyson. But this was something more chilling, calculated stillness. And across from him, Joshua didn't flinch. He circled slowly, gloves high, reading Tyson like a textbook that had suddenly started writing new chapters on its own. Joshua's team had spent months preparing for chaos, drills built on evasion, precision, countering a hurricane. But now, they watched a version of Tyson they hadn't planned for. He wasn't the brawler of old. He was a thinker, a tactician, and worst of all, patient. That patience began to feel like pressure. Joshua flicked his jab, light and fast, but Tyson didn't bite. He leaned just outside range, almost inviting the younger fighter in. Seconds turned to minutes, and a strange tension filled the space between them. It was no longer just about who would strike first. It became about who would reveal what they were hiding. Then, the twist. Tyson feinted low, and Joshua reacted. Too much. Tyson's right came over the top like a hammer, grazing Joshua's temple. Not flush, but enough to send a tremor down his legs. The crowd roared not because of the damage, but because they felt it. The rhythm had broken. Joshua's eyes blinked a little too long, and Tyson smiled. Just slightly, almost like he knew something no one else did. For the first time in years, Tyson wasn't fighting to survive the spotlight. He was thriving in it. And that's when the undercurrent emerged. Unseen by most, but clear to the sharpest corners of the fight game. Joshua's corner had started panicking early. They didn't show it on their faces, but their calls grew louder, more desperate. There was something about the way Joshua moved now, more cautious, almost restrained. Whispers from behind-the-scenes training footage had mentioned a recurring issue with his right knee, something minor, easily brushed off during media workouts. But now, with the stakes towering above him, that leg wasn't stepping like it used to. Tyson saw it. He always saw weakness. That was his gift. He didn't just attack bodies. He dismantled belief systems. And the moment Joshua's footwork hesitated, Tyson stepped in, not wildly, but with intention. He pushed forward, not to brawl, but to press, to suffocate Joshua's comfort zone. Each jab from Tyson wasn't just a setup, it was a test, a probe. How far can you run? How much can you handle before the storm catches up? But Joshua wasn't folding. Behind the eyes of a man under siege was a fighter who'd built his entire career on composure. He started using angles, subtle shifts in position, not just to evade, but to read. If Tyson had evolved, so had he. The jab started landing again, this time sharper, aiming for the chest, the guard, the glove, anywhere to disrupt Tyson's rhythm. It was like watching two grandmasters move pawns while hiding queens in plain sight. But just as Joshua began to steady the tide, Tyson unleashed a wild uppercut, close, terrifying, and missing by a whisper. That miss changed everything. For a second, Tyson's foot slipped, just a minor stutter, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. But Joshua noticed, and something clicked. The hesitation, the pacing, the patience. It wasn't just strategy. Tyson was managing something. Not fatigue, not fear, something physical. Joshua's eyes lit up with recognition. The old warrior still had the heart, but maybe, just maybe, the engine had a crack. Suddenly, the chessboard flipped. Joshua advanced, doubling up his jab, feinting low and pivoting hard, testing Tyson's ability to turn. The roar of the crowd rose again, not because someone was falling, but because they knew the stakes had just doubled. This wasn't just a fight. It was a countdown. Tyson had to land something massive before time and tension caught up to his body. Joshua had to stay perfect, not just technically, but mentally. One mistake and Tyson's fists would erase it all. Outside the ropes, the commentators struggled to keep up. They'd expected highlights. They were watching a war. Fans across the globe leaned closer to their screens, yelling advice into the void, trying to will their favorite to victory. But inside that ring, neither man heard anything but their own thoughts. And those thoughts were getting louder. And just when it seemed like the second round would end with both fighters still on their feet, Joshua stepped in a fraction too close. Tyson twisted, a short hook launching from his hip, sneaking around the guard like a heat-seeking missile. It wasn't clean, but it landed with a thud that echoed louder than any words. Joshua staggered, not dropped, but clearly rocked. The crowd gasped. Tyson didn't follow up immediately. He stood there, eyes burning, daring Joshua to come again. That moment hung like a thread in the air, thin, tense, and ready to snap. Tyson exhaled slowly, eyes locked on Joshua, who steadied himself, refusing to back down. Whatever weakness Tyson was hiding, whatever doubt Joshua was wrestling, neither man would reveal it now. Not yet. And as the bell rang, slicing through the chaos, both fighters returned to their corners in silence, breath heavy but minds racing. In that quiet, the real battle began, not between fists, but between what they become and what they still fear they might lose. By the time round 3 began, neither man looked the same. Tyson's left eye had started to swell, just slightly, the kind of damage that doesn't show up loud but slowly steals vision. Joshua's legs were springier now, but his breathing had changed, deeper, more deliberate, as if he was pushing back a rising tide of adrenaline. This was no longer just a showcase of strength. It had become a psychological knife fight, and both men were bleeding something invisible. Tyson bounced in place, nostrils flaring, and Joshua responded by stepping to center ring before the bell even finished ringing. This time, they didn't wait. They met. The exchange was brutal. Tyson threw first, a quick right to the body. Then, a whip-fast left hook. Joshua parried and responded with a clean uppercut through the middle. The impact sent Tyson's head snapping back. But he didn't stumble. He grinned. Not cocky. Not crazy. It was the grin of someone who had missed this. The danger. The test. The moment where only truth exists. He countered with a right so fast it caught Joshua off balance, cracking against his ribs and making him grimace. They were both hurt now, and they knew it, but neither took a step back. Every second in that round became a question. Who's got more left? Tyson kept closing the distance, trying to make the ring feel small. Joshua, hands high, adjusted on the fly, fighting in pockets, landing sharp counters, but never staying in the same place twice. He was trying to drag Tyson into the deep water, hoping his youth would outlast the legend's fire. But Tyson wasn't fading. In fact, with every shot he took, he seemed to get more dangerous. There was something defiant in the way he moved, a refusal to let the years write the ending for him. Then, midway through the fourth, it happened. Tyson feinted low and launched into one of those old signature combinations. Left hook, right uppercut, left to the liver. It was fast, violent, and almost perfect. The final shot bent Joshua forward, knees buckling slightly, crowd erupting as they sensed a finish. But Tyson didn't see what was coming. With one step back, just enough space to create an angle, Joshua snapped up with a devastating right uppercut of his own. Not rushed, not wild. It was timed with surgical cruelty. Tyson's head snapped back, and for the briefest second, the arena held its breath. He didn't fall. He stood there, dazed but upright, blood trickling from his lip, eyes blinking hard as if trying to remember where he was. Joshua moved in for the kill, launching a flurry of punches. But Tyson's defense, even shaken, was still there. Head movement, shoulder rolls, enough to survive. The bell saved him. But as he walked to his corner, the mask slipped. His gait was slower, his breath short. For the first time in the fight, he looked like a man battling more than just his opponent. The fifth round began under a different light. Both men had given and taken more than expected. Tyson's team urged caution, telling him not to swing wild, to pick his shots. Joshua was told to finish what he started, to step on the gas before Tyson found another gear. But in the center of that ring, neither game plan held. Instinct took over. Tyson charged early, launching a savage left hook that clipped Joshua's chin and sent him staggering back into the ropes. It was now or never. Tyson unleashed a flurry, fists flying like pistons. Joshua covered up, absorbed most of it, but a sneaky right hand split the guard and snapped his head sideways. The crowd screamed, ready to witness a miracle comeback, but Joshua wouldn't go. With a sudden twist, he pivoted out, spun Tyson off balance, and fired a short left hook straight to the temple. Tyson dropped to one knee, not from power, from exhaustion. He beat the count. Of course he did. He stood eyes clear but body drained. The ref gave the nod. They continued, and in those final seconds, with both men spent, they circled once more, not as predator and prey, but as warriors who knew they'd touch greatness, even just for one night. The bell rang. No one celebrated, not right away. Both corners rushed in. Both fighters leaned on ropes, breathing like their lungs were ready to give out. And then came the decision. Split. One judge for Tyson, one for Joshua. The third pause for what felt like forever. Then came the verdict. Draw. Shock rippled through the crowd. Neither winner, neither loser. Just two men who gave everything and left the rest on the canvas. Boos, cheers, confusion. But in the ring, Tyson and Joshua met in the middle. No anger, no protest. They embraced. There was no robbery, no shame, just respect carved from pain. And just when the lights dimmed and the broadcast seemed ready to wrap, the camera caught something strange. Tyson, moments after leaving the ring, whispered to his coach. A nod. Then a quiet smile. He turned to the camera, leaned in, and said just loud enough to be heard, "Next time, no gloves."